So let me introduce our guest here in the spirit of that kind of working person's conference. I introduced Henry Schuck. Now, Henry and I actually met through a guy named Dave Sill originally, and where we first had a chance to get to know each other was at a conference where he was running around with an iPad. At the time, his company was called Discover.org. Discover.org is actually ZoomInfo. They acquired ZoomInfo. They acquired Ranking too. But prior to that, he was running around with this iPad and he had like contact information and data. And he used to go to all these conferences and he'd go to the exhibitors because the exhibitors were selling to, at the time, information technology organizations. And he'd say, hey, look, are you trying to get into these IT departments? Like, we have the org charts, we have the contact info for all these people. And people would just be like, whoa, that's amazing. Like, we need that. That's great. So he's this very unique entrepreneur. And I'm going to say something pretty astounding, but it's true. I'm going to call him a once in a decade entrepreneur. And I mean that. And what I mean by that is it's very rare that you can find an entrepreneur that will literally do any job you need to do, clean the toilets, you know, hustle out there trying to sell with an iPad, you know, your data services, doing a demo, and then someone who can take it all the way to a point where he acquires and rolls up all of his competitors, Ranking, ZoomInfo, I think some others, and then also goes public at a, I don't even know how to count this high, 7, 8, I think it's a 9, what is it, 8-figure or 9-figure, 8-figure billion, whatever, valuation, market cap, unbelievable. And he was just on Kramer, for goodness sakes, on CNBC. He was on Kramer. So there is just not a lot of people out there like that. And we are just honored that he's going to tell us exactly what they do at ZoomInfo every single day and how they're able to schedule. When I saw this number, I was like, this is ridiculous. 1,000 demos a day, which seems preposterous. So with that, Mr. Henry Schuck.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David. Excited to be here. And like Steve and David both said, the whole point of this session, you're not going to get me talking to you about what 2035 is going to look like for sales. You're going to get me talking about how we're going to market today and being as detailed around that as possible. My hope is that you walk away today feeling like, oh, you understand a little bit more about how ZoomInfo goes to market, and then maybe you can steal a little bit of that for your own organization, because really everything we've done here has been stolen from somebody along the way, many from Steve and David. So before I get into that, ZoomInfo is a publicly traded company, so this presentation may contain forward-looking statements. Any buying decision you make should be based only upon currently available products and offerings. Our complete safe harbor statement is displayed here for your review.
Hey, and I gotta say, he's a lawyer, so give him a break, okay? But he is actually a lawyer, and he has to actually say that by law. Go ahead, Henry.
All right. So what do we do? So I'm going to talk a little bit about what ZoomInfo does, and then get to the go-to-market stuff. We help companies of all sizes go to market. So whether you're a Fortune 100 company like DocuSign or Sodexo or a pallet manufacturer in Alabama, we provide data on your target market, the technology to leverage that data, and then surround that with insights to let you know who to reach out to, when to reach out to them, and what to say. And this is super valuable because the world is constantly changing. Companies are growing, they're shrinking, they're getting acquired, people are moving, they're getting new jobs, new executives are coming in. Companies are adding and dropping technologies and bringing new vendors in. And so the business world is constantly changing. No business looks the same on December 31st as it did on January 1st. And corralling all of those changes and making sure that sellers have the most up-to-date information on their prospects and the accounts that they are targeting, that's what we do. And our business is really broad. We have over 17,000 customers, from fast-growing technology companies to real estate companies, to water manufacturers like Bevy and the Comedy Store and Bethesda and the Golden State Warriors, and really everything in between. Last quarter, we signed a pecan exporter from Alabama. So we work with companies of all sizes who sell to other businesses. That's the one characteristic that goes through all of them. They're selling to another business. So all of these businesses have some kind of go-to-market motion and some kind of tech stack that support that motion. And what we've built our business on and what we're super convicted about is that go-to-market intelligence is the single most important element to make sure that all of these motions are not just firing on all cylinders, but they're set up for sustainable and scalable growth. And without building all of your processes on all of these key go-to-market intelligence pieces, everything else just kind of feels like a stack of cards. You want to do good territory planning and you're just going to use the data in your CRM, you're probably not going to end up with really good territory planning. You want to understand your ideal customer, but you're only using the data that comes from your CRM, you're probably not going to figure out your most ideal customers. And so you build all of these motions on top of really strategic go-to-market intelligence, and that's what makes them really impactful. And so let's talk about how our go-to-market team is structured. So first off, everything is broken down into super specialized roles. And it all starts up front with demand gen marketing, which leverages our own data to optimize lead flow and campaign effectiveness. This all feeds our sales development teams, which are broken out into 3 different roles. Inbound SDRs, they're fed solely from inbound form fills or hand raisers. SWAT, what we call SWAT SDRs. These are SDRs who are working warm leads who've completed a form fill, but who have not completed a form fill, but have spent time on our website, or maybe they've downloaded some content, but they haven't asked for a demo or a trial. And then outbound SDRs, who are cold calling very targeted companies and buyers by leveraging data that we feed to them through our data lake, which I'll talk about. And that's ingesting data from ZoomInfo and Salesforce and our product to pick the best companies for our outbound SDRs to go after. So after the sales development process, we have our new business sales team. These are our account executives who close the deal. The next piece of that is our customer onboarding team, whose sole focus it is to get the customer provisioned, trained, and integrated. And then lastly is our overall customer lifecycle management team, where we nurture and grow our customers. So underneath these sections, you can see some of the analytics and data science that we're layering in, from lead scoring and enrichment up front to potentiality to upgrade scores after close. But let me click on modeled win rate here in between. You'll see that in between sales development and new business sales, and talk about what that means. So what we do here is first we take a predicted win rate, so we're taking a lead comes in, we're predicting the likelihood of that lead to win and that company to close. We're doing that based on firmographics and technographics at the company. So how many salespeople do they have? How many total employees? Do they use Salesforce or Marketo? Do they have a chief revenue officer or a VP of sales title in their organization? Remember, across the 17,000 customers that we work with, about a third are SMBs. And so these attributes are really important. So we take the predicted win rate, we couple that with an engagement score that we get out of our Inbox AI platform. That platform, Inbox AI, it's tracking interactions that our SDRs and account executives and account managers are having with prospects and customers, and the seniority level of the people they're having those interactions with. So then if we see engagement dropping and we're underpinned in an account, the demand gen team in an automated way goes out, sources higher level contacts, and engages them in the process. And it's a good example, that's just a good example of how data is flowing throughout your sales processes. This is happening. And if you can capture it all, then you can drive an automated motion back through your process to get a higher win rate. You know, your AEs, the calls they're having, the meetings they're doing, the data sheets they're sending out, all of that is really valuable activity data that you can capture and then look for patterns to re-engage. And in this example, we said, look, if you're underpinned in an account and engagement drops off, we need demand gen to step in and re-engage that account. And we can do that in an automated way. Great. And if we start up front on the demand gen side of the house, actually, let me back up here. Yeah, if we start up front on the demand gen side of the house, we have a solution called Form Complete, which lets our customers limit the number of fields that they have on their web forms while appending all the relevant person and company information in the background. And so this is just a good example of the culture we've built around constantly metricing things. But conventional wisdom will tell you the less fields you have, the more conversions you're going to get on a form fill. But in reality, you don't actually just want more form fills. That's actually not the goal. What you want at this stage of the funnel is to generate more MQLs that convert to demos. And so what we found that was more eye-opening, if you look at this chart, is that the optimal number of fields to optimize for MQL conversion for us is actually four fields. But imagine how this played out here internally at ZoomInfo. Someone said, hey, less fields, more conversions. Go down to one field. Take everything down to one field. I said, okay, that's a good idea. Let's take everything down to one field. But that wasn't good enough. Somebody came back and said, look, I want to know how those are converting to demos. And what happens if we do 2 fields or 3 fields or 4 fields or 8 fields? Are we converting them to demos better with more fields? And where is the optimal point where we get the maximum number of form fills at the optimal rate of conversion? And so what we found here was it was actually 4. So if you got to 4 fields, that gave you the highest conversion rate while also optimizing the number of form fills. And so really getting to best in class on any number of metrics in the go-to-market motions requires these types of automation, this type of automation and test everywhere across your funnel. And we're constantly doing that. And here's an example of how we do this through the handoff motion, where an account executive hands off to our customer experience team, as well as how we view data preceding a renewal. The bottom table is an example of how we view the customer journey. And this is an example of a newer muscle that we've begun to flex and focus on here at ZoomInfo. And we had SLAs for when all different types of customer touch points would be occurring, but we went back and we revisited those. The sales, operations, retention and growth, and CX organizations, they all worked cross-functionally to create live visibility by day for each one of our accounts. So we know when something is in 5 different stages of compliance by day. Are they onboarding? Where are they in adoption, the renewal cycle, delight? And we have visibility to that compliance every single day. And having that type of visibility allows us to really drive motions. You see that in the bottom table. You can see by day the customer journey. And then the top table is a view of customers that are coming up for renewal. This data plays into a larger customer health score, but it's an amazing view that our team has by account and by rep. There are 6 different activity types and cadences that we measure here that have been identified as predictive to renewal. Some examples are calls, emails, talk time in 7 and 30-day windows. And so imagine being a manager and having the ability to sit down with your rep and say, hey, you know that $250,000 renewal you're forecasting this month? I don't see any calls on it in the last 7 days. Do I need to adjust my forecast? And it creates this new level of accountability for reps that might seem invasive at first until they see the outcome. After deals stop slipping and you're collaborating to get to the right outcome, what first seemed like micromanaging all of a sudden becomes this self-enforced process. On the new business side, our marketing team generates over 10,000 hot inbound leads every month. And we have a dedicated team of nearly 100 inbound SDRs whose sole focus it is to handle these leads with care as fast as possible. So from those 10,000 leads, those SDRs are booking over 6,500 demos every month. And we're able to, every month. And we're able to take these 10,000 leads, route them into our system, and we're actually able to respond to them in less than 90 seconds. And that's really hard to do. A 90-second SLA on leads that come in that need to be routed and enriched and then sent to the right SDR is hard to do. And you can't just buy technology, right? It's not one of those things where you just go buy a special tool that gets you to respond in 90 seconds. It does require technology, but you have to take that technology, you have to implement it, you have to make sure it's correctly implemented, you have to ingrain that technology into a process, and then that process has to be executed over and over and over again. And even that's not enough. The biggest thing we learned in this 90-second SLA process is that it takes a cultural commitment, because there are hundreds of places where this can blow up for you. And so now our team is absolutely committed to executing this. But when we first started, you'd hear things like, well, what if I'm in the bathroom and I can't get back in the right response time? What if I'm on another call and it gets routed to me, and so I just email the guy instead of calling him? Or what if I'm at lunch? But we made a cultural commitment that 90 seconds was going to be our response rate, and the team cared. And we created smarter systems and processes all the way through to solve for all of those issues that somebody might have brought up. One of the things that we like to do, and I didn't do it on this call, so this data is from a different meeting that we did. But we like to go out and test the results. We like to test companies to see how they do on response time. And this is a pretty standard, And while you're looking at this, I want you to think about how important an inbound lead is to your business. Somebody who comes to your website, takes the time to fill out a form, is interested in your products and services. How important is that for your business? And then let's look at how companies typically respond. We did this on 54 companies. On those 54 companies, 54% didn't follow up at all. Literally nothing. Someone filled out a web form from ZoomInfo, by the way, so it wasn't like a bad fit company. We can buy technology or services from any company out there. We filled it out, 54% didn't even respond. And I bet that if most of you went and looked at how you've responded to inbound leads, you'd find at least some portion of them that you've never gotten back to. Of the people who did respond, 24% took over an hour. And if you look in the chart on the right, you get a 10x decrease in your ability to convert a lead to close new business by waiting. If you don't do it in the first few minutes, that drops dramatically outside of the first few minutes. So 24% took over an hour, 17 responded within 2 and 60 minutes, and only 5% responded within 2 minutes. So speed to lead motion is super critical, and so we operationalize it across our company. I call every month and test how long it takes our SDRs to call me back, and it's gotten a little tricky because they've identified my Google Voice number now, so I'm constantly changing phone numbers to make sure they don't know it's me. So because we're leveraging ZoomInfo and our Form Complete solution, when a lead comes into Salesforce, we know a ton about the account before an SDR even picks up the phone. That allows us to prioritize and route those leads optimally. And here's an actual example of what our Salesforce looks like. So right when a lead comes in, I know their industry, their employee count. I know how many of those employees are in sales functions. I know the year they were founded. I know whether or not they have funding. I know what kind of CRM and marketing automation systems they're using. I have a direct dial phone number and a mobile number. And we've built a scoring model so that we take all of that data. And look, lead scoring is not the most exciting term anymore. People have been doing lead scoring for a while. But what we do is we built a lead score that tells us what the potential ACV from that lead actually is. And then we look at the potential win rate against that lead. So how much ACV are we likely to get, and how likely are we to get it? And that gives us an overall potential from that lead. So we can say, yeah, this is a great lead, this is an average lead, and then what we do with that, and really part of our secret sauce, is we're stack ranking account executives against those scores. And so if you've got a hot hand as an account executive, we're gonna get you the best leads that month. If you're underperforming as an account executive, you're not going to get the best lead that comes into the funnel, and it's totally transparent across the account executive team. And if you saw on this animation, one of the last things that happens here is, so we have all this information from ZoomInfo. We have the inbound response time. You have this information that they're able to see on the record, and then finally, the SDR is presented with a stacked ranked list of account executives who are most likely to close this business. And so they choose the account executive right here who's most likely to close it, who has the availability that the prospect asked for. Okay, let's see if I can get out of this. So let's look at the AE side of the equation now. This all starts with how we're stack ranking those account executives. And we're tracking them across 4 key metrics. Those are ACV1, win rate, ASP, and ACV per opportunity created. And we're looking at that in a trailing 3-month period. So when I go out and I ask sales leaders, who's your best rep? The answer usually is it's the person who sells the most ACV. And that might be true for most organizations, but for us, we have a structure where we're feeding the account executive leads. And they're doing 4 or 5 demos a day from those leads. And so it might not be the person who has the most ACV, because that person might actually be getting the highest quality and the highest quantity leads in comparison to their peers, and they're just converting those poorly. So I might have an AE who's on the lower end of the ACV spectrum that's getting lower quality leads, but is actually generating a pretty good amount of ACV from the opportunities that they create. And so by looking across these metrics, it levels the playing field. The AEs getting the highest quality leads are creating more opportunities than the AEs with the lower quality leads. What we're trying to do here is get a closer view of how you perform with the quality of leads or your at-bats. And of course, if you route 100 high quality demos to an AE, they're going to close a lot of business. But what we're interested in knowing is, how does that compare to somebody who got routed 70 medium quality leads? And is it in our best interest to switch those two people? And so finding ways to be able to make those comparisons is really key. And it gets closer to an apples to apples view of performance by controlling what you can control for: efficiency and then quality. And controlling for this and being able to rank and rate our AEs every month, and then feeding that data back into Salesforce allows the SDRs to route leads in an automated way to the best available account executives. Also, every account executive knows where they're ranked. It's totally transparent across the organization. They know how we're controlling for quality, and that is really meaningful for the way our teams feel about the fairness of leads. Because everybody has been in a sales organization where your number 2, number 3, number 4 sales rep goes, you know what? If I got the same leads as the number 1 guy, I'd be doing a lot better than he is. And this just normalizes completely for that. And I don't want the efficiency point here to be lost. Picture this. You have 4 reps, same quality of leads and same tenure. Now here are their numbers for the month. Reps 1 and 2, both top performers at $225,000. Rep 3, slightly behind at $210,000. And rep 4, tailing at $100,000. Is rep 1 or rep 2 on the hot streak? The answer is almost easy when you tie optimization to output. Rep 2 is crushing, and rep 1 needs to step up. I gave rep 1 the most demos, my most precious resource, almost as many as the next 2 reps combined. And their output was equal to someone I gave 30% less demos to. It's important to think of your business in terms of optimizing your resources. Regardless of count here, whether you have 50 demos per month across 4 reps or 10,000 demos across 100 reps, understanding how to maximize the outcome of those resources is really key to efficiently scaling your go-to-market motion. So let me touch on an example of different ways that we're optimizing and automating processes in our go-to-market cycle. So as we're setting 6,500 demos a month, inevitably some people don't show up. And so we're always looking for ways to optimize show rate, the people who show up and the people who don't. And so no surprise, the number of days out, the number of days from when I book the demo to when it's supposed to go off is highly correlated to show rate. And the closer I set the demo to the demo to the day I have the conversation with you, the higher likelihood they're going to show up. So once we dialed in the first demo show rate motion, we started to focus on the other group, getting those people who didn't show up back on the phone. So I booked a demo, it's supposed to go off today, but the prospect didn't show up. So what we've put in place is a process that programmatically starts following back up with the prospect. And not only that, we've built a sub-team on the inbound SDR team that dedicates time every day to focus on a reschedule motion. We try to get the prospect back in, and we've gotten pretty good at bringing the prospect back. Once we get them back in, the prospect funnels through our waterfall, just like all the other people in the funnel who showed up the first time. And what this has created for us is actually $1.2 million of ARR every month. And we're focusing literally on the scraps that are dropping on the factory floor. And that's generating significant ARR for us every month by just focusing emotion around what would generally feel like wasted opportunity. And so this goes back to really that culture of perfect execution that we're constantly striving for. The easiest way for me to illustrate how this works is once a prospect no-shows, we have an automated sequence that hits the prospect looking to reschedule. If that fails, they hit the reschedule team that I mentioned. From here, we're able to recapture nearly 1/3 of those no-shows. Again, nothing groundbreaking here, but we systematized this, we metriced it, we track it, and that's generating over $1 million of ARR a month for us. So one of the aspects we're really proud of is our ability to grow, to build and grow our talent internally. We think this is one of the key pieces of success. So if you're a SDR manager or an account executive manager on this call, and you're thinking about talent progression and career progression, we think we do a pretty remarkable job here, and I'll walk through it here. We go out to the market. We're able to bring in SDRs at a relatively low OTE. It's their first job or their second job out of college, or they come from a service background. And we get them in, and they're able to be on the phone within 3 weeks in that inbound SDR motion. And this is why specializing functions is so important. Because these functions are so specialized, we're able to bring you in this specialized inbound SDR role and immediately start getting value from you. So you start learning sort of the company and the ideal buyers through that process. And then we're moving you into our Schuck group, and then later our outbound motions. And these positions, every sort of ladder up in these positions is looked at as requiring more talent and as true promotions. And the individuals that we hire are driving to move up this talent ladder. So once they're in the senior outbound SDR group, the SDR gets a chance to be paired one-to-one with a senior account executive. You can think of this as a mentor-mentee relationship. It gives us a chance to introduce the SDR to some new things and gives them hands-on experience managing a pipeline, talking through sales and negotiation strategy with their account executives, and all of the other things that it takes to be a great, efficient seller at ZoomInfo. Then we get to the point where we have this senior SDR that's been paired with a top 20 seller for months. They've watched someone manage pipeline, run a demo, overcome objections, and it's in the AE's best interest to make sure this person is supporting them in the best way possible. Meaning that if we promote this SDR to a commercial account executive, they already know the things they need to do to be successful in that motion. They understand the why behind the day-to-day activities. And so we're able to move these SDRs into commercial account executive roles within 12 months. Meanwhile, they're adding value from the start. We segment that into corporate and strategic and commercial account executives. And that feels like incredible career progression, because you can imagine getting somebody out of college and telling them, look, in 3 to 4 years, you're going to be in a position where you're making 4 times the OTE you started with. And that career progression that they're able to see and really see people in those roles who just started a year ago or a year and a half ago is really powerful. And we're able to do this all across the country. We don't have to be in San Francisco or Austin or Boston to do this. We're doing it out of Vancouver, Washington, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, Bethesda, Maryland, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio. And so we're able to build this in much lower cost geographies. So let's talk about how we've structured our SDR motion. So we get a lot of inbound, but if you want to continue to scale, you have to actually proactively be out in the market. You need a process and a team built to go out and find people who are or should be interested in what you do. You have to do interruption marketing. Go out, find someone, hey, I'm ZoomInfo, here's what we do. So what we've done is set up this outbound SDR motion that contributes 40% of our new business sales. And while this is a smile and dial type role, it's extremely targeted and automated. We know the industries, the employee sizes, the marketing automation that companies use, and dozens of other attributes that we use to get perfect fit for the companies that we're calling outbound against. We feed that data to our outbound SDR team, so they're not just calling any company, they're just calling the good fit companies. and they know the decision makers at those companies. And if we get that decision maker on the phone, great. We go one level down and we start capturing the people underneath the decision maker to create a good groundswell of support. And this motion is really effective on the new business side, and so effective that we've actually moved this now into our customer side too, into our customer base, where we sit what we call CDRs, customer development reps, alongside key account managers to uncover new opportunities within our largest accounts. And one of the advantages that we have, because we have the ZoomInfo platform and it feeds this outbound SDR motion, is that we have a tremendous amount of data available to us. And we've had multiple days, like Steve mentioned up front, where we've set over 1,000 demos in a day, which is an amazing number. But to be able to do that, you need to have a large total addressable market, and you need to have the data to go after that total addressable market in a really efficient way. So we spent most of 2019 aggregating together data, both from ZoomInfo and from our internal motion, pulling all of that together, pulling in scoops and job changes and prior usage data. And we're letting all of that really drive our SDR motion. So as an example, all of this is prioritizing accounts and people at those accounts for our SDRs to reach out to. But let's say a new vice president of sales or marketing gets hired, and we're getting that trigger from the data lake. We're taking that and pushing it to an SDR, putting it at the top of the priority list so that they're able to get after them. And this motion is constantly uncovering the next best account for our SDRs to go after, or put in a more simple term, it's creating a prioritized list of accounts and contacts at those accounts that our SDRs should be engaging with. And it constantly is running in the background for us. Let's look, I want to look at a typical day, what this looks like. It's about a year ago, actually. So the numbers have actually gotten much better than they are here. But we picked September 24th. We got 568 hot inbound leads. Of that, we created 238 inbound demos, 159 outbound demos. We created 213 opportunities and 26 wins that day. The activity level on that day included 18,000 emails sent, 9,100 calls, 109 free trials, and 4,937 people replied back to an email we sent. But recently, we added additional daily metrics as well. We added number of DocuSigns sent, number of quotes created, call minutes, number of meetings that were had, and DAO/MAO engagement scores. But what's most impressive here, like if you're looking at this and going, wow, they made 9,100 calls, that's actually not the most impressive thing here. The most impressive thing is it took us 5 minutes to pull these metrics. And you can go to a lot of companies, most, and say, tell me how many calls you made yesterday. And it would be like pandemonium trying to figure that out. But we've just instrumented everything across the go-to-market motion so that we're capturing all of that data. Some of it we don't do anything with for months or years, but having it captured allows it us at any time when we're making a decision to say, there should be data for that. Let's look at it and let it inform our next motion. So demos are a key part of our selling process, and every lead takes a demo with one of our account executives. After that demo, it's imperative for us to stay on top of that account as they're going through the buying process. And we realized our account executives were missing follow-ups with their prospects, and that's the worst thing that could happen. And so we actually created sequences that follow-up sequences that reps had to put their prospects into before they were able to create an opportunity. And so you couldn't disposition a meeting until you would put them into one of these follow-up trips. And that meant the SDR couldn't get paid until you disposition the meeting and put them in a follow-up trip. And so the demand gen team was able to go through and build really targeted sequences that look at persona, that look at use case, that look at products that were introduced and industry and size of company. And we're able to take that and create really targeted follow-up messaging to prospects. And the proof of that is the metrics that we're able to get here from those follow-up trips are much more impactful than what you would get from just a generic follow-up. We have 80% open rates, 50% reply rates, 5 to 10% click rates, and it's all automated using our demand gen team. And our demand gen team actually sits down with the sales team to craft these messages. It's not just like a marketing content writer who writes a bunch of fluff. They're forced to sit down with the subject matter expert to get that messaging right. And all of that drives a 10x LTV to CAC, a less than 30-day sales cycle, 500 plus new logos, 600 plus new logos every month, and over $1 million of ACV per account executive every year. So that's the new business motion. In the next 7 minutes, I'll take you through the rest. So let's talk about what happens when someone becomes a client. And one of the most important things we do is how we think about segmenting that book of business. And setting up account segmentation purely dependent on size is a good start. It's where we started, but it's just not optimal. Well, what you need to focus on is both size and potential to grow. I mean, that's what we're all focused on when a customer when a prospect becomes a customer, is how do I maintain this? How do I grow it? And so what is an account's potential to grow? And you can get to that really by using data. You can do more than just, hey, I'm going to take my enterprise business accounts and give them to my best account managers. So if you're an enterprise company, we go, let's drill down a little bit into what year you were founded, how many salespeople you have, how many seats did you purchase from us versus how many salespeople you have, how much employee growth happened over the year, and a bunch of other factors. And what it does is it informs us programmatically to place you into a segment where we've scaled not only the talent, but also the account loads. If we identify you as a mid-market company with high growth potential, I'm going to send you to one of our top account managers who also has a lower account load than their peers in the mid-market segment. And their goal is to grow you in parallel to how fast you're growing. And having a high confidence in the prediction that a customer will grow at a slower rate than another is also an invaluable data point when it comes to resourcing. And that level of functionality, it allows us to do this and optimize revenue on every single account. And another nuance to the account load issue is that if we give an account manager 80 accounts, they need to have those 80 renewals over a balanced period of time. And managing that is pretty hard. You can balance it perfectly once or at one point in time, but then someone leaves or you hire 4 new reps and 2 people transfer to account executives. And that all happens in a week. And the process for managing and assigning those accounts has to be smart, it has to be automated, and it has to be agile. So you have to be prepared for these changes to happen and think through them in advance, because if every customer hates being handed off from account manager to account manager. So being thoughtful about how that's going to happen is really important. On the handoff side, how we treat our clients and how we staff them, especially up front in that first month, is incredibly important to their experience with us and whether or not they're going to renew. And so we've created a fairly sophisticated onboarding process with lots of specialization in roles. We have an assigned learning and development manager, or LDM. They do the training directly for that client. We immediately assign a customer success manager, or CSM, whose sole focus is integration, adoption, and customer health. They're not revenue-based. And then we have an account manager whose job it is to renew and grow that account. So specializing these roles and then bifurcating them into selling and non-selling allows the client to have really clear road rules. So if they have an issue, go to your CSM. Need more seats, you go to your account manager. And with the CSM not being tied to revenue, it gives the client a sense of comfort around having someone who has a sole focus of making them happy. And keep in mind, again, not how we started. Started with an account manager who did everything. But as we continue to sophisticate the motion and mature, this is what we've matured into today. Come back a year from now, and I'm sure this will look different. So once the client has gone through the onboarding process, we have standardized touchpoint cadences that automatically respond to different KPIs we measure throughout the customer lifecycle. But this visual is here just to illustrate how complicated the customer journey experience that I mentioned earlier can be. This process is trying to accommodate and respect the customer's time, as well as tie together 6 or more internal teams in a really streamlined way. And it's really hard to do this in a thoughtful way, and it's harder to execute on a pretty fast timeline. But you can see here how all of the groups interact and interrelate across the customer journey. So one of the last things I want to highlight here is how we view pacing in our business, which is analogous across the retention and the new business side of our business. The summary here is literally what we literally know by day, by rep, by manager, by director, by senior director, the number everyone needs to hit every single day for us to hit our number that month. And so what happens if we miss one day? That goes out to me, it goes out to our chief revenue officer, it goes out to the entire sales leadership team. Every day I get an email that tells me how we're pacing on the retention side and how we're pacing on the new business side. The guy who sends it, in my mind, is like, he can make or break my night. At the end of the day, I get an email from Tony Sherman and it says pacing, and I have to just think like, am I gonna check this now or a little bit later? It could be a good day, it could be a bad day, but we get it every single day and we know exactly how we're pacing down to the rep and broken out by manager. So all of this creates a really high velocity, hyper efficient go-to-market engine. It's fueled by how hard the team has worked to put processes in place and by telling them every day whether we exceed, meet, or miss those targets. We have this great motion that allows you to come out of college and be an account executive a year later. We've got this lead routing system that optimizes every lead that comes in. We have a data lake that's using all of the ZoomInfo data to prioritize the accounts and the decision makers at those accounts we should be engaging with. And then we've created the ZoomInfo platform that we've tweaked and changed and invested in over the years that demos spectacularly. And you get a VP of sales on the phone or a VP of marketing on the phone, and you show them how they can get after their total addressable market and the information that they need to do that directly in our platform. And you see anxiety just come off their shoulders. And so we're really lucky we have this incredible platform that we're able to sell, but we've been really programmatic and serious about optimizing every step of the go-to-market engine along the way to make sure that we're doing that product justice. So that's it.
That's it. That's incredible. So I'm going to give a couple thoughts. I know everyone's got to go. So first, thank you, Henry. This is absolutely phenomenal. I just kind of want to put a bow on this because, you know, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, whoa, this process is incredible, right? And how can I possibly get here? And my big takeaway is, you know, we've worked with and seen thousands and thousands of organizations put these processes together. And this is probably the most sophisticated I've ever seen, to be honest with you. So it's a testament to what you guys are building. And I think the challenge for many people becomes the overwhelming sense of how on earth do I accomplish this? And,
Totally.
And my takeaway is it's process, it's visibility, and it's accountability. And you have to start somewhere. So you just start tracking the things that you can track. And it sounds like you just really built stuff over time. So again,
100%.
Give us like 30 or 60 seconds to sort of put it all together about how should people be thinking about the sophistication as they start from a smaller organization, obviously hopefully one day becoming a publicly traded company.
Like, it's actually like not that complicated. Like, there's something you know is wrong in your go-to-market engine right now. You know is sub-optimized, you know is not working as well as it should be. And just go tackle that thing. And how do you tackle it? You go, okay, why do I think that our conversion rates on demos are performing poorly? Like, what's your hypothesis? And then where is the data to support that hypothesis? It is, you know, our sales reps don't call our leads back even in the same day. You have data that shows you that. Pick that up and then make a pronouncement. Like, we are going to get back to every lead within the first 5 minutes of them coming in. And then your reps will lose their minds. They'll go, I can't do it because, great, because what? Tell me because. And then you're solving the becauses. Because what if I'm not at my desk? What if this? What if that? Solve the becauses, make it a pronouncement, and then go fix that. And while you're fixing that, and while rolling out, you're tracking the metrics, you're noticing higher conversion, and you're off fixing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But I think everybody knows today, can look in their organization and find the thing that they think they're sub-optimized on, the thing that they're not best in class on, and just go tackle that little thing and let that be like the beginning of constantly iterating across the motion.
Awesome. So we will be sharing the deck and slides with you guys after the conference as well. And then I think the final piece, and I'm going to give Henry a plug here. If you're not using ZoomInfo, you should be using ZoomInfo. We use ZoomInfo. If you are using ZoomInfo and you're not using it the way in which Henry is showing you, I assume, Henry, they should probably reach out to their CSM to ask them how they can get to a 90-second SLA
100%.
with your technology. So I suspect that that's the plug, is reach out to your CSM. And if you don't know who it is, I suspect you do based on the process that Henry just laid out for us.
Yep. Or if you don't, you can just send me a message. I see that question. I'm responding to it.
Henry is very good at emailing. I'm actually about to send Henry an email right now. We'll see how long it takes him to respond to me. All right, Henry, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.